$5 and I probably got half a tank. These gas prices are coming down slowly but surely, but that's what we always got to do, go get gas before we go on another photo adventure. Alright, welcome to another photo adventure at the Salt Lake City Cemetery. Let's go. So, the Salt Lake City Cemetery is one of the largest city-owned and operated cemeteries in the United States. It has over about 150 acres of land area, 9.5 miles of roads, and around 120,000 people are buried here. And that number is still ticking up and up because that's the general way of the world, way the world works. We're running and gunning with 2 cameras today on this photo adventure. Kind of look like one of those photo snobs with the typical photo vest that I never thought I'd ever wear until recently. The reason I really enjoy 2 cameras is I don't have to sit and change around lenses. I don't have to carry my camera bag with me. I pick 2 lenses that I think are gonna work for what I need for the day, put them on, one on each camera, and I go out and I don't have to worry about carrying a bunch of other stuff. Less is kind of more to me. So the one camera we got is the Sony A7R II paired with the Sigma 14-24. That's going to be our wide angle lens. Then we have the Sony A7R IV paired with the Sony 24-240. That lens is just a good overall capture whatever you need for the day. Not the sharpest lens here. That 24-240 is just it's meant for everything. So it's not going to be the sharpest lens, but you know what's nice about it is I can do a little bit of anything with it. The Sigma, on the other hand, this 14-24 is a super sharp wide angle lens. I've loved it. You can pick them up for about $1,000 to $1,300 depending on if they're on sale or not. And the 24-240, that's about $1,000 there for that lens. Now, a lot of people get caught up in gear. I still shoot with my old Sony A7R II. This thing is just outdated. They don't even sell them anymore. When I bought it, it was like $2,500 back in the day. I'd probably be lucky to get maybe $500-600 out of it. Sony A7R IV, it's about $2,500, $3,000, depending where you get it from. Nice camera, but I always tell people, more than being worried about gear and things of that nature, worry about experiences. One of the things I find that a lot of us photographers do, or people getting into photography, is they start dumping a bunch of money into equipment. Now, don't get me wrong, equipment is nice, it helps out, it helps you capture your vision, but experience is what you need to get when you're out there. Spend money to get cool experiences. Go out there and shoot as much as you can. That's where you're going to hone your skills. That's where you're going to get your content creation with your photography. The lens isn't going to do anything for you but capture the image. Same with the camera, you got to set that image up. So I think that's a very important thing that a lot of us tend to forget. We get caught up in, oh, I need this $2,000 prime lens, or I need this $12,000 friggin' telephoto lens that can see the man on the moon. Don't get me wrong, those things are very nice, but don't forget concepts. Concepts with photography is super important, especially in nowadays where you're playing around with Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, all these things. And don't get discouraged if you're not getting thousands of likes on your photos. It just happens. Some photos get really popular, others don't. Some photographers do really good on social media, some don't. Just get out and enjoy it. And that's what we're doing here today. I've always found that coming to cemeteries is extremely relaxing for me. I enjoy these people way more than I enjoy the living. And I thought, you know what? Let's get into Salt Lake City Cemetery and let's explore a little bit with you guys. And let's go see some graves that are spooky in their history. Try and explain some things to you guys about these sites, and maybe you'll learn something along the way. So the first grave we're going to be going to, we're coming up real quick on right over here. So I'll get back to you guys when we get there. All right, we've reached destination number 1, and that is the legend of Emos Grave in Salt Lake City Cemetery. I'll turn the camera around and let you guys see while I explain this legend to you all. So it's a simple little mausoleum located in the Jewish section of the Salt Lake City Cemetery. Now, you won't see anything on this grave labeled Emo. The legend has it that Emo's grave, you come up and you circle it 3 times. So there's 1, there's 2, and on our 3rd walk around, we will knock at the door and stare inside, which we can't because it is now welded off. So, and supposedly you see his eyes staring back at you. Now, that's all urban legend, of course. This grave actually belongs to Jacob Moritz. He was a brewer, started the Salt Lake City Brewing Company, and yeah, he was a successful brewer. His brewery became one of the biggest outside of Milwaukee, selling beer all over Utah, Idaho, Nevada, Colorado, just all over. And of course, he passed away here in Salt Lake City and was buried here. So that is the legend of Emo's Grave. Not as spooky as they actually make it out to be, but nonetheless still a pretty cool structure. I like when I come up here, a lot of the time you will run into people doing the whole knock knock, run around 3 times scaring themselves, but as you can see, it's just nice and peaceful. So we're going to grab some shots of Moritz grave here, and then we'll move on to our next location. So as we move to this next location, I wanted to talk a little bit about things that you might want to remember while you're doing photography. If you go do photography for fun, for professional, for whatever, glasses. Make sure you take these damn things off before you actually capture your image, because you're almost setting the image up to be polarized, darkened by what you see, and you're like, oh, that looks really good. Then you look at it with your glasses down, oh, it's all washed out. So make sure you take your glasses off. Hats, I'm a big fan of hats. I can never get my damn viewfinder up to my eye when I have my hat on, so I always have to turn it this way and look like I'm rocking Limp Bizkit back in the 2000s new metal age. But that's for all you photography people out there. Other people that want to come enjoy this place, like I said earlier, it has 9.5 miles of road, and it's a workout up here. You can probably hear me from the beginning of this video. It might look like I'm walking on flat ground, but it's actually got hills everywhere. And right now, being as it is, let's see what the temperature is right now. I told you guys earlier it was 100 degrees. What are we at now? It is a whopping 95. It's dropped a little bit. Cool. Oh, 95 degrees. So it's a little cooler. The other cool thing about Salt Lake City Cemetery that you'll find just wandering around is you're going to see a ton of wildlife. You're going to see loads and loads of squirrels, different types of deer, different types of deer, what am I saying? Different types of four-legged animals. So squirrels, deer, I've seen raccoons up here, a whole gamut of birds, and a lot of four-legged friends, dogs. People like to bring their dogs in here, even though they're not supposed to. If you do bring your dogs in here, clean up after your animal. But yeah, a couple of years back, we had a gigantic windstorm with hurricane force winds in Utah, and it really wreaked havoc on this place. There were trees, these old trees, especially these old pines, the old pine trees, loads of them just ended up getting uprooted from the ground and were laying all over the place. You couldn't even come into the cemetery for, I want to say, like a month or two because of the extensive damage that was done by that windstorm. And it's amazing now, as I walk around, I don't really see much of anything in the way of damage, so they've cleaned it up pretty well. In the cemetery, you have some interesting areas. So back there where we just came from, that's the Jewish section of the cemetery. Straight ahead of us, this is coming into your Catholic area of the cemetery. And then on the far north, middle north of the cemetery, you have your military section. So there's tons of great opportunities for cool photos, especially with the style of cemetery this is. It's old. It has a ton of different headstones and statues. It's not like those boring cemeteries that you find that predominantly encompass most of Salt Lake County, and that's just the flat headstone on the ground. This has a lot of upright headstones with a lot of cool art about them. We're actually coming up on one right now. It's this angel dude with a sword, which is pretty cool looking. I'll show it to you guys in a second. Right here, the Starks. I'm guessing this is a family plot. You'll probably find a ton of Starks in here. And like I said, this part is the Mount Cavalry Catholic Cemetery. I don't know if they actually consider this part of the Salt Lake City Cemetery. I doubt it. They might, but I don't know. But yeah, really, really cool stuff up here, especially if you're into awesome looking statues. And of course, these were the Starks, and that sucks. One of them was barely 18. Short lives, taken far too early. Rest easy. So the next grave I'm taking you guys to is a pretty notable one, especially in the spooky world, and it's a bit of a jaunt up there, so I'll save you guys a bunch of rambling and get my butt into gear and get up there so you guys can check out this next one. I think you'll like it. So we're almost to our next grave site that would be of interest to just about anyone in Utah. I don't know why I'm whispering, because there's no one up here. I guess I'm just trying to be respectful. But one thing I wanted to show you all is this sits in the foothills of Salt Lake City, and literally you get a really good view of Salt Lake County. So it's pretty beautiful. I actually really enjoy coming up here during weather events, whether it be in the wintertime or the spring when you get thunderstorms rolling in. Provides some really cool shots of clouds and a little bit of landscapes. So we're almost to our next spot, and I think you guys will think this one is pretty creepy. If you follow me on social media, you will already know that I've been up here a few times, and you've probably seen a few posts of this grave, and now I just need to find it. Every time I come up here, I end up searching for this damn grave, back and forth, so hopefully it doesn't take me very long. Oh, Lily, where are you? That's why I'm not a singer. We are looking for the grave of Lilly E. Grave. And it is around here someplace. Peterson, Robert Wells, Gary. Bum, 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 bum. Where are you? Her grave usually is covered in artifacts because it's got a very sinister inscription. Very sinister indeed for being in a Utah cemetery. Now, if I could just find this puppy for all of you. In fact, I'm going to spend the next moment looking around, and I'll get back to you guys when I find it. And right as I turn the camera off, of course, I stumble right across it. So, this is the grave site of Lilly E. Grave. Born June 6th, 1881. Passed away November 14th, 1958. Underneath that inscription is the inscription that makes this grave so sinister and infamous, famous, whatever you want to say. Tons of locals come up here, as you can see. I doubt any of this stuff sitting here is actually from her family. But as you can see, the inscription down below, victim of the beast, 666. If my history serves me right, her husband's name was Elmer Gray. Had a lot of run-ins with the law. Not a very good dude. But as far as the inscription goes, I've heard countless different stories about why it says victim of the beast online, in forums, internet sleuths, investigators. I don't think anyone is truly ever going to solve why the inscription is actually on there. But when you do a family history, there's not anything that really stands out being devil worshipping or anything like that. So who knows why it's there, but it is a very fun, exciting grave to come visit, especially during spooky Halloween time, to get your skin crawling if you're into ghost hunting and things of that nature. I just like it because of the inscription and to wonder why it's actually there. Someone left a note here. My curiosity wants to open it up, but I'm going to be respectful and just leave it be, because that's what we should all kind of do. Yeah, but that is the victim of the beast grave, Lilly E. Grave. And we're off to our next location. Okay, so this area I love to come to because it is a very eye-opening sight. This is the military part of the Salt Lake City Cemetery. These soldiers, on their gravestones, it states what branch of the service they were in, what war they served in, and it's just a very, very peaceful and thought-provoking part of the cemetery. I always wonder about what these men and women that are buried here, I don't even know if there's any women buried in this section of the cemetery, but what the sacrifices were of the individuals that are before us all. It makes you very grateful for sacrifices that men and women give for this country we live in. Another interesting thing I find myself doing in cemeteries besides doing photography is wandering around the gravestones and looking at what people left behind. I used to work in a cemetery, so that was something I did to pass the time, and it's always interesting to see what people leave for their loved ones, because you're always kind of wondering the story behind that item. So at this little grave marker here, Lilly E's, someone left this interesting Egyptian looking alligator thing. Who knows if they were into Egyptian stuff or what? They died quite a while ago, 1869 and 1873 to 1924 and 1939. Or maybe it was just some child that left their toy here, but it's got quite some weight to it. But also, don't be a jerk. Don't steal things off gravestones. They're not yours. They don't belong to you. So that's one thing that you should always remember. Practice common decency as a human being. All right, we're on our way to our next site, which I think local Utah people will appreciate. And if you're not from Utah, I'll explain the history of this next one. So the grave behind me is that of Porter Rockwell. If you don't know LDS history, Porter Rockwell was actually the bodyguard for Brigham Young. So there are a lot of people think he was a hitman too back in the day. That's up for whoever decides when you're reading history. Obviously, some history is going to say, no, that wasn't true. Other history is going to say, yes, it was true. But this is where he lay to rest, Porter Rockwell. All right, y'all. Well, thank you very much for joining me on another photo adventure. Where do you like to go for quick getaways around your area? Me, I always love coming out to the cemetery. It's peaceful, it's quiet, and like I said in the beginning, I enjoy these people more than I do the living most of the time. Anyways, leave a comment in the comments below, like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for your continued support and coming along on these adventures. I hope you enjoy them, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.